Welcome to Hellbent Holler Live. Let us know you can see us and hear us, and we will get started with the show. Let us know in the chat, and we will rock and roll. Give us a 5 by 5, everybody. Loud and clear. Thank you, Miranda. Crew, welcome to Hellbent Holler Live, the most howlinest and good time pallinest show on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. here on Hellbent Holler. We are so glad to be with you guys today. And I've got my presenter voice on. Let's get out of that real quick. But we are so glad to be with you guys today. It has been a ruckus of a weekend for both of us. Joe went out and did a solo experiment in Blackthorn Lake and ran into a lot of strange issues and discoveries as he was out there.
Yes. Nutslab. Remember for 19, Nutslab's one of the OGs, man.
He
the
is.
OG Hellbender members. Here for the teats.
Here for the teats. Everything always devolves anytime we talk about Dogman, and we are going to talk about Dogman today. Anytime we talk about Dogman, it seems like the discussion always devolves into the debate over female Dogman teats,
Yes,
the number of teats.
We need to do a show just on that. Right. Stephen, thank you so much for that. Been revisiting your older expeditions, all fantastically entertaining.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you. And then Curtis Whitaker.
Curtis, don't hurt us. Curtis, we were worried about you.
Last week, we didn't see you in the chat at all. So, all right. But Curtis has made a return.
Thank you, Curtis.
I've raised my damn font too high.
Yeah, we can change it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to change it.
We were trying to do these without wearing our glasses, and so we raised our fonts, and now we can't see the
now
monitor.
It's like it's all messed up. You know what I'm saying? So because I had to like take some notes with some dates for what I was doing. I can't find Curtis's thing. There we go. Curtis, thank you so much, my friend. Thank you.
Okay, I reduced mine down. I've got like a good balance here on my font size. We're getting old, if you can't tell.
Yeah.
The elderly hellbenders here. But yeah, so today it was officially announced on the Facebook page of the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference that we, check that out, boom, look at that, everybody. Hellbent Holler will be gracing the stage in Gatlinburg at the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference. We are really excited about going. Since they made that announcement on their Facebook page today, we really want you guys to do a big old favor for us. We're going to put the link in the chat of their post that they made, and I also put it in the description of this video. Go to their post and make sure you like and comment on their post on their page. That way they know that the Hellbenders are coming out in force.
Yeah, because we're finally. I beat this point to death every week, like I beat every point to death every week. No. But we are community like supported. You know what I'm saying? I would like to think we're pretty accessible to people. We talk to people outside of the show here. I mean, this is what we do. We just don't put a costume on and then go shoot a TV series for like 4 weeks. And then the rest of the year, we're not doing it. This is what we do. We're field investigators looking into paranormal and cryptid and high strangeness activity all over the Southeast United States. So it's pretty awesome because we're starting to finally break that barrier that's always just been finding Bigfoot expedition, Bigfoot mountain monsters. That's who's at this conference and this conference and this conference and this conference.
And it's the same lineup every time.
And they have the same speeches every time and everything like that. We're finally starting to break it. So now that we're breaking it, we're trying to like show these people they're deciding to kind of break outside that pattern, that there's like community support for this stuff, that people do want to see something above and beyond the mountain monsters people standing there. You know what I'm saying? And so if you could, we put the link in there. The link's in the description of the video. If you could just pop over and give that a like.
And then I'm going to pop that link again in the chat right now. But that is the Facebook post that they put up announcing us. Just let's do a fire mission right here. And all of you Hellbenders, go over there, like their post on their page. Let them know that you guys are so excited to have some new blood on the stage. we are pretty stoked. We're excited to come out and
Yeah.
give a brand new presentation. We have done Tennessee Wildman last year. We did Cryptid Con last year, and we used a lot of the same elements in that presentation between those two conferences. But this is a brand new presentation, and it's going to focus mainly on the subject of Sasquatch. It is the theme of the conference. So we want to go out and we really want to talk about the Southern Sasquatch and all of the strange things that surround the Southern Sasquatch. And it seems like the Southern Sasquatch is its own kind of entity, separate from what you find in the Pacific Northwest or even down in Texas. It seems like there's almost a more supernatural bent to the Southern Sasquatch.
Yes.
Supernatural Southern Sasquatch.
Supernatural.
We've got to do the alliteration or it doesn't work at all. But yeah, go and do that for us. We would be highly appreciative. And if you can't do it right now because you are watching the show, make sure you go into the description of the show and that link will be right there. Also, below that link in the description, you can find tickets and more information about the conference. All right. That's my shill for the day.
That's my shill.
My shill for the day.
Hey man, if you don't promote yourself, who's going to promote you? So
we do have a couple other on here.
Yeah, we have a bunch of members that are coming up on their anniversaries. Now we do have a Kurt. Kurt is a new member.
Welcome to the fold.
Welcome.
Kurt.
And then we have EDP, another OG crew, been with us since we launched our memberships in the LBL last year. Patty the same way, OG. Hawk is an OG who just rejoined. And then Lady Wolf, best damn mod in the business, has been with us since we were a wee slip of a channel back in the day.
She's been slugging it out.
Lady Wolf took a chance on us crazy kids and stuck with us. And Julie Bug in there from the bitter beginning as well. Julie, thank you so much.
Julie Bug is also one of our biggest cheerleaders. I see Julie Bug in other people's chats
talking about us.
So
Everybody's coming out of the woodwork right now. Cryptid Castleberry, we've met him.
Now it does say woo, so you do have to read it properly. Woo! That was beautiful.
That was pretty good.
I'd marry you all over again.
Woo! Alan, and all the members that are in here right now are taking. I think you can do that. I think you can do that like once a month. You can I don't even know how that works, but it shows up every once in a while. And they're all taking advantage of it right now. We've got the coolest Ristle. We need OG t-shirts. Would you wear them, Ristle?
I don't know, Ristle.
Well, I don't know, Ristle. Would you wear them or would you wear some other channel's t-shirt? So anyway, we kid because we love you. But we that woo is a good thing to.
Oh, that is a good thing. You're right.
To launch into kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. And I have been bringing this up quite a bit recently. And somebody probably in this chat right now, I don't remember who it is.
It might be Oki because Oki just dropped us a super sticker. Thank you, Oki.
Thank you, Oki.
Oki's our resident weatherman.
No, Booberry's our resident.
Oh no, sorry.
No.
I'm sorry. I've looped around here.
You looped around. Booberry is our resident weatherman.
Sorry, I was
wrong. But we have got so I've been talking about it quite a bit lately. I've been talking about I go on about infrasound all the time and how I don't think that's responsible for a lot of the stuff that people think it's responsible for. And I do go on to how I think that a lot of the weird stuff that people experience, whether it's with Bigfoot or other types of paranormal or cryptid activity, but we're going to mostly focus on Bigfoot because that's where Mindspeak and stuff like that is mostly associated with. It's like the Bigfoot phenomenon, although to also a lesser extent, the Dogman phenomenon as well.
Absolutely.
Although the Dogman is usually a lot more basic, a lot more primal, a lot more threatening messages that it has. And so tonight, we're going to kind of be all over the damn place. I actually have notes for once, just because, again, I needed to keep my dates straight with it. But we have...
Bonnie Blues says, like a true mental institution, Jesse has too many residents to keep up with.
I'm
sorry. I'm always looking at the weather reports and it's always one right after the other. And I'm so sorry. And I'm so exhausted. I went to a concert over the weekend, and I'm never going to another major concert again. So I'm still trying to recover from that. I am exhausted. Joe's exhausted from his solo excursion during all that too. But I'm beat. I'm absolutely beat.
We've just got a wave of members here right now.
We just did, yeah.
But just people that have been with us.
MK
Ultra, longtime caller, first time listener. Suji, y'all are a Cinderella story. Came out of nowhere and kicked ass. So, and I can't remember if I did Alan or not. I think I did. Got a lot of the OG crew in here tonight, man. So anyway, one of my pet peeves in the you pretty much see it all across, like, and let's just focus on the Bigfoot community, and then when it ties into Dogman, we'll just kind of we'll call it over. You know what I'm saying? You know, we'll beckon Dogman to us, but we're going to focus just on basically the Bigfoot portion of it tonight. Now, one of my pet peeves is the old school Bigfoot researcher mentality, which has pretty much just defined the search for Bigfoot.
Yes.
Okay.
I do think that's kind of on its last.
Oh, it's
gasping its last breath.
There's value to certain parts of it. There's value to certain parts of it, but and again, I'm not really disparaging anyone. I'm just saying that in my mind, we haven't made a lot of ground as a community in decades with this. Sometimes you look around and you go, okay, interest in Bigfoot is at an all-time high, but what have we done to really advance the topic? Are we any closer now to, and what's the goal? Do we want like formal recognition of it? Do we want some people want a body on a slab laid out? Do we want scientists or the government to come out and go, it's real?
I think everybody's got their different levels of what they will accept as the standard for saying, okay, Bigfoot is real, right?
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is that a lot of people, I don't need a scientist at a university or someone who works for the government to come out and tell me whether something is true or not. Because at this point, I don't really know if I believe anything that anybody tells me. Do you know what I'm saying?
You mean if the government comes to you and says, I'm from the government and I'm here to help?
Yeah, exactly. So let's get that down too. But you know, for the way Bigfoot research has always been done is that we have basically appealed to the biological sciences. Okay. And a lot of people are like, it's an undiscovered ape of some sort. Okay. And then there's some people that are like, well, it's a relic hominid of some sort. It's an offshoot of one of the, mankind's cousins that we used to share the planet with. And it's either a holdover vestigial, population, or it's an offshoot of that. It's something that maybe doesn't exist in the fossil record, but it evolved from something that is in the fossil record, if that makes sense. So that's the way that we've always approached it as a community, okay? And it's focused on those as if it's focused almost from like a zoology type of, we've looked for physical samples, hair, footprints, physical marks on the environment, video and audio when we can find it at this point. And that's the other thing too, is that Patterson-Gimlin's still the gold standard for everything.
Everything always goes back to the Patterson-Gimlin film, because it doesn't matter how many footprints we get, how many howls we record, how many clumps of hair that we discover in the forest. That does not stand up to video evidence of what is considered Sasquatch.
Well,
right?
And it's my thing is that it's never, it's kind of been, as somebody who basically is out looking for this to try to capture video evidence of it, it's pretty embarrassing that the Patterson-Gimlin film is still the gold standard.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We haven't really moved past any of this. And we haven't really, and there's been a little fleeting things. We've gotten some interesting stuff on thermal that look like large upright figures observing us.
But we never hit whatever it was with a flashlight and saw it.
Can't get it. It's too quick. It's too quick. It moves away. You can't get up to it. So, Tracy, welcome to the membership. Tracy Bennett, welcome.
I was going to get over that when you were doing your nice little intro there, Joe.
And Miranda Crew, another OG, man.
Yeah.
You guys are like in it.
And don't forget the prince of the Discord, Mr. Walter Ballard.
Yes, indeed.
So everybody is hitting it.
Everybody's hitting it tonight. Everybody's just kind of in the, and I think you can do that once a month.
Yeah.
Where you can kind of hit that. I don't know. So anyway, and tonight it's going to be a lot of like me babbling and Jesse kind of interacting because this is thing. Joe is very passionate about this. So there is definitely going to be several Joe rants going forward here. Well, it's not a rant. It's just that when what you're doing is not working, you need to change. And what the Bigfoot community has been doing ain't working. Cast another print, get another hair that comes back inconclusive when it's tested. You don't have anything to match the hair to, so it doesn't really prove anything at this point. But it's the ways of thinking, and it's the whether you agree with it or not, you got to start looking at stuff and go, what we're doing is not working. And when I say we, I'm talking about the greater Bigfoot community from the 4 horsemen on forward, okay, it's not working. It's not working what we're doing. We need to try some different stuff. And the first thing we need to do is maybe realize that some of the prejudices and some of the very firmly held beliefs that we've had and we've clung to and we've forced on people throughout the years may not be beneficial anymore at this point. And that I come down to this, it's there, and you can't really say anything is impossible.
Right.
There is a possibility that there is a very intelligent, very, very, very physically gifted bipedal primate hiding in the woods of North America with absolutely no special abilities other than the physical attributes that it has.
So this is just a run-of-the-mill animal that has just gone
really smart and it's really physically capable. There's a chance of that. You can't say that's impossible. We don't have enough data to say anything is impossible.
Yeah.
And that's what gets me. And we'll circle back to that in a minute. But every year we go by without a body being collected diminishes that possibility a little bit for me. And I talked about this on a member stream within the past few days, is every year we don't have a body. Every year one doesn't get hit by a semi, get sick and die somewhere where it can't be. Every year that happens, every year that doesn't happen, decreases that possibility for me, at least, that we're dealing with just a relic ape population here. A very physically gifted ape, a very unique ape, in a way just as unique, if not more so, than humanity is. But it's just every year we don't have that. The possibility of that being the explanation for all of this just diminishes in my mind. Yeah. And you go, well, if you look at this, there's a reason why we don't have a body yet. And a body hasn't been found or anything like that. There's a government cover-up. Well, in my mind, at least, if it's just an ape, why are we covering it up in the first place? We don't cover up grizzly bears. We don't cover up coastal brown bears. And those things are legit monsters. Those things are prehistoric holdovers that are terrifying. We don't try to cover those up. Okay. So the government, if there's a government cover up or conspiracy, well, that means there's something weird going on.
For sure.
Or there's something weird going on that explains why we don't have a body like that. Or third possibility is we're all crazy. And those of us who think we've seen something, we were hallucinating, the trace evidence that we're finding, we are misinterpreting stuff that has nothing to do with Bigfoot at all. You've always got to leave yourself open to that. You've always got to have a moment if you're doing this and you're going to be intellectually honest. Would you agree?
I agree.
That you just have to go, am I crazy? You guys have heard me say that on investigations before.
And I think we were discussing this last night on a member stream, that if you have these experiences, you see a Bigfoot, you see a Dogman, and you don't stop and ask, am I crazy? If you don't question your sanity, then you are crazy. I think that is the mark of someone that has a sound mind, is that someone who actually questions their sanity when they're experiencing these things, they're seeing these things. They have to question their sanity. I know I do on a daily basis every time we're out there in the woods. And this is
I question your sanity on a daily basis as well.
I understand that. I do want to question the sanity of Alan Brumagen, who has been a member for 13 months. I'm going to get a few.
You guys are coming out of the woodworks.
I know. I've got to get a few of these out of the way. I know you're going.
That's fine.
Rick Skinner, member for 9 months. Woo or not to woo. And we're going to address the woo word. Woo. We're going to adjust the woo word in a little bit. I have a few things I'd like to say about that particular word and how it is used in this field.
Chris Jackson, sorry that thermal was me.
He was the naked hillbilly.
You were the naked hillbilly watching us from a mountaintop. So Grizz
and Kim here, and
both of y'all are OGs.
Sean Hawk, you guys are rolling them out today. Jeez, Louise.
Good Lord. And then our buddy Bigfoot Michigan Rob.
Hello,
What's
BMR.
Up, BMR? We are usually over in BMR's chat, Bigfoot Michigan Rob's chat. So if you ever see a live stream, there's a chance you're going to see us over there, just kind of chatting it up with everybody. But anyway, I forgot what I was saying.
Sorry,
now.
I gotta get. We've got to tend to the people.
I guess the show's over because I literally can't remember what I was talking about. So,
all right.
The thing about being crazy.
There it is.
That because I have those moments out in the field, and then when I'm back and we experience something weird, I just go, "Did that happen? Am I crazy?" Because we do this all the time. We've experienced a fair amount of weird stuff out in the woods, and you still have these moments where you go, did that really happen? Am I crazy? It shakes the very foundations of your reality. And every time you think you're getting kind of like calloused to it, something happens that just completely just boggles your mind again. So there's something weird going on. There's something weird going on. We don't have all the pieces to the puzzle. Okay. We don't have all the pieces to the puzzle. No matter what you think the Bigfoot phenomenon is, we don't have all the pieces to the puzzle.
I don't think we're ever going to have all the pieces to the puzzle.
Well,
at least not in our lifetime.
We're going to die trying to get
do our best.
Pieces of the puzzle. So for something that we don't really know at the end of the day that much about. We know some patterns in behavior. We know some patterns in activity. We know some areas in the country. And when I say we, I mean the greater Bigfoot community. We know some areas in the country where sightings seem to be more frequent. We know that in certain parts of the country, certain physical attributes seem to be more common than in other parts of the country. So we know a little bit, but we don't know a lot. Okay. We don't know a lot. And just like I myself gave myself a little wiggle room a few minutes ago, saying that you can't say that it's impossible that there's a relic hominid species out there. And I've had those moments. You're on a mountaintop, you're looking out just over just countless miles of wilderness, and you go, something could be out here. And it could. I still struggle with the fact that something's living, breeding, eating, defecating, and dying out in the woods, and there's just a breeding population of them out there. And you know what? I'm not alone in struggling with that, because we have always approached this as field biologists or as zoologists, trying to explain this flesh and blood creature and try to like desperately entreat established science to like, just listen to us. It's here. They don't take it seriously either. Do you know why? Because they're zoologists, because they're field biologists, because they know what effect a breeding population has on the environment, the food that it eats, the waste that it leaves. Well, you know, you rarely find bear skeletons in the woods, but you do occasionally find bear skeletons in the woods. That's not an impossibility. It happens. It just doesn't seem to ever happen for Sasquatch. Okay. Never seems to happen for Sasquatch. It's almost impossible to get on camera. You can get audio of what we assume to be Sasquatch. Well, that's not line of sight. You might be hearing it from the next hill over, the next ridge over. You're in a valley, it's on the top of a mountain. It's not line of sight. It's damn near impossible to get video evidence of it. Game cameras, basically useless. It's very impossible you get physical evidence that's debatable. A Bigfoot footprint is not going to convince a skeptic of anything. Okay. I don't care how good it is. Everybody's going to fall back to that. Well, you hoaxed it. Okay. Bigfoot footprint casts are basically baseball cards for the Bigfoot set. We're like looking at them. You got them on your shelf. Oh, this is a reproduction from this track line all the way back in 1972, you know? So I guess it serves a purpose. I don't find it personally interesting. That's why we don't cast footprints. That, and two, we're always usually miles away from our camp or our vehicle on foot, and carrying extra water and then all that plaster with you, or hydrocal or whatever you decide to use. It's really heavy. So we'd rather carry like other stuff with us. So for something we don't really know that much about, everybody has very strongly held opinions, and that's cool because this is a topic people get very passionate about, right? You know, they get
very personally invested in.
Absolutely. We're the friggin' definition of that.
Absolutely.
You poster children for being.
There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that that's something that once you get bitten by this bug, this Bigfoot bug, you can't get rid of it. It's a virus that takes over your mind. You cannot get rid of it. You are completely invested in it, and you can't escape it.
Well, here's the deal, is that part of the reason why the Bigfoot phenomenon is not taken that seriously, in spite of it being so popular, okay, is because we have always appealed, we're begging for mainstream science to look at these castor prints, and field biologists are going, might be a bear double step, or you hoaxed it, okay? We're trying to go, we think there could be 10,000 in the continental United States in order to have a viable genetic pool for a breeding population. And zoologists are going, where's the effect? A creature of that size would need to be eating constantly. Its caloric needs would be so impressive that there would be a noticeable effect on its environment. And if it's very, very far ranging, if it has a very, very far range and it moves around quite a bit, in that case, I'm just gonna have to skip on it. So, if that's the case, then an animal that's in movement, constantly moving, traveling long distances, to me, that would make it more likely to get caught, to get hit by a car. And yeah, like roadside crossings are like one of the most, probably the most statistically numerous. It's probably the most statistically high type of sighting. As far as we know, none of them have been hit by a car. So if it has, again,
we're going to hit some of these chats in a second.
That's fine.
Because the chat is flying.
Let it fly, because we're working our way to something here.
Okay.
So we've always appealed to that. And guess what? You have to always draw a parallel. No matter what brand of weirdness that you're involved in personally, you've got to draw a parallel to how the UAP and the UFO phenomenon has evolved over the past few years. And we've got a few scientists that are involved in the Bigfoot phenomenon, Jeff Meldrum being the most notable living one right now, because they legit believe it. We have other scientists that are in it because it's entertainment. You can make money on it. But we don't have a lot. But the UAP phenomenon has got some of the UFOs have got some of the most creatively intelligent minds of our time right now. Okay. People that are like the the successors to like Einstein and Tesla and everything like that are literally all bought into the UFO phenomenon.
People like Gary Nolan, who holds the most medical patents in the country.
Yeah, and it's just, and Hawk, I thought they were just a mere animal after experiencing what I have. I don't know what they are. I don't know what they are either. And nobody really knows what they are. And anybody that tells me that they know definitively what they are cannot seem to prove that beyond just a very strongly held opinion. And, but the UAP folks, if you've noticed, the conversation has changed over the past few years. And as the conversation has gotten stranger, the topic has been taken more seriously. And here's why. Because the days of the UFO reports in the 1950s where people would come around the corner and there's a broken down UFO on the side of the highway. And there's little green men out there with wrenches, like working on it. That doesn't make sense in any way, shape, or form. In one case, one of the aliens approached a car, and I wish I could remember it off the top of my head, and asked them for a particular substance that they needed to repair their craft. And the person had never heard of the substance before. And the alien just kind of shrugged and went back to working on it. People would hear that and they would go, that makes zero sense whatsoever. Okay. And the population just laughed at it. It was you had some really serious researchers. Obviously, the government took it seriously, but I think the government's also some of the ones who swayed the conversation into strange areas to kind of up the ridicule factor. Now, there's also the possibility that the phenomenon behaves in a ridiculous manner sometimes in order to keep people from believing in it, but that's another topic for like another show. The conversation finally became, in my mind, more fanciful, but yet more realistic as far as the UAP topic goes. We started to, instead of going, well, these are alien rocket ships that take off from another planet and they travel through space and they enter our atmosphere and they land and they get out and they mess with our cattle and they mess with us in our bedrooms at night. They take biological samples. There are things done with reproductive organs. There's all of this stuff. And mainstream scientists would go, that makes zero sense whatsoever. You would need, even with faster than light drive coming from the nearest possibly habitable star, you would be dealing this, and this. We would be catching them on our radar if they're entering our atmosphere or just seeing them. You see objects as they enter our atmosphere, they heat up, you know. Didn't we just have that piece of like a Russian satellite or a Chinese satellite come through the atmosphere a couple weeks ago and everybody was worried it was going to hit? So
it landed in the Indian Ocean.
So it's what they want you to think. It was a Venus probe. And that's how Night of the Living Dead started. A probe from Venus came back and all of a sudden all the dead bodies started rising up. But my point is this, is that mainstream science, they're trying to give mainstream scientific reasons why the UFO phenomenon was real. Mainstream scientists understand mainstream science pretty damn well. Okay, it's kind of what they do. And they would look at it and go, that's not possible, that's not possible, that's not possible, that's not possible. When you start hitting enough that's not possible, the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater. The little green alien baby gets thrown out with the bathwater at that point. It's when the conversation started to turn into, this is what's happening. We don't know how it's possible. It appears that these things are behaving in a manner that's not consistent with our understanding of physics, but it's still happening. That the conversation started to kind of enter new, like, realms of possibility for most of the population. They actually started talking about it because here's the deal. Saying something that is, and again, there are things that happen beyond our understanding of science. There's still a lot of stuff that happens within our understanding of science. And when somebody says something that violates those rules that we know are true, well, then mainstream scientists don't take us seriously any longer, or UFO people or whoever it is. But once the UAP community started to kind of just get rid of the, people like Stanton Friedman and stuff like that. People that were just, these are nuts and bolts craft, and that's all there is. Mainstream scientists had a hard time with that because they knew that that was quite honestly impossible. Once they started to talk about how, and then what's crazy is they would start to go, we don't know how this is happening. This seems to be beyond our understanding of physics, but this is what's happening. We can't deny it. These craft are traveling this speed within our atmosphere with no sonic booms. They seem to just basically ignore, friction, centrifugal force, all of this. They just seem to basically operate in ways that just are basically physically impossible. But it's still happening. Once they kind of basically threw their hands up and admitted that there's stuff happening that could not be explained, then all of a sudden mainstream scientists started to kind of take it seriously a little bit. And then all of a sudden scientific creativity started up, where people started to kind of go, well, people that previously would just go, well, that's physically impossible. Now all of a sudden they're going, well, technically we don't have the material science, and the energy output would just be beyond what we could do, but you could do it. Suddenly it was no longer beyond our understanding of the physical world. It's beyond our ability to replicate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everything changed at that point, it seemed like. And I think we're at a crossroads where we need to start doing that with Sasquatch. I think we need to start going, just like Hawk said, we thought they were just mere animals, but after experiencing what they have, we don't know what they are.
Sort of establishing that these are the facts that we know. This is what we don't know. And we need to kind of parse that out instead of making declarations of they are this, stop asking questions.
What we do know is a few pieces, grains of sand on a beach of what we don't know as far as like Bigfoot goes. And here's the deal. When you start putting these arbitrary lines of what you're going to accept, when you start becoming the self-appointed filter that all Bigfoot encounters have to go through, and then you will decide based upon what you think sounds crazy or not, what's real and what's not real. Well, for a lot of people, all Bigfoot encounters are crazy and they're not real. A lot of us know that's not the case, that there's something going on here. We don't know what. But when you start to put these arbitrary filters on to censor the encounters that are coming in because of what you think is impossible, but you yourself don't have a grasp on what is actually possible, then you're doing a disservice to them. We're never going to advance. And that's why I think we haven't advanced. Okay. We have had 60 years, something like that, of guys who look like me, old white guys with white beards. I don't have the adventure hat, sitting around.
We can get you one.
Telling you that that's impossible. That's impossible. That's woo. That's woo. Oh, that's woo.
Labeling.
That's woo. Labeling this stuff.
Using that as a weapon.
Yeah, to control the conversation.
Well, what it does is the word woo is used as a derogatory. There's laughter behind it. People who use that use it as a cudgel. They use it as a weapon. They use it to control your thoughts and your language on what is going on. If you have a different theory about what's happening based on evidence that you've seen, things that you've experienced, you're told that you're crazy or you're stupid because you are talking about something that is outside of the realm of their level of science.
You've now been silenced by somebody who doesn't have a full grasp of the situation.
And they're controlling what you say and what you think. They're entering your mind and controlling what you do at that point.
What's crazy is that they're often the most verbally aggressive. And again, and they're saying the same thing that I'm saying. You're why people don't take us seriously. No, you're why people don't take us seriously. You're trying to tell mainstream scientists that there's a large monkey running around in the woods. They understand how monkeys work. They understand how great apes work, mountain gorillas, all of this. They understand how large mammals, how they can go into a physical environment and not even see the animal and tell you that that animal is there or not. Okay. So they understand that language. They understand that science. And you're basically telling them that in one hand, you're telling them that they're complete idiots. They don't know what they're talking about, even though they've been trained in that.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, you're begging for them to give you just like a little sliver of respectability, you know, instead of going, thank you, LW. Life is so chaotic. I just saw you texted me earlier. I've got to get back in touch with you, buddy. I'm like a week overdue getting in touch with you. Thankful for the good things like Hellbent Holler. Thank you, buddy. But
I'll get to these whenever you want it.
Take a break.
I'm gonna let you roll.
For the last few episodes, I've been talking about how something called the Frey effect, and I'll give a little backstory to that here in a few minutes. But there was we're not really in any Bigfoot Facebook groups because it's kind of counterproductive nowadays in my mind. But our good friend Daryl Denton has a big one, Bigfoot Believers
and other creatures.
And a group of, one is very well known, the rest of them are fairly well known, group of people came into his group one day and were just really needlessly aggressive to people that were talking about Mindspeak and all that. Mm-hmm. And listen, I understand that's a hard subject to wrap your head around, but all of this is a hard subject to wrap your head around when you really get down to it. How the hell is all this possible? But it's still happening. But my problem was
these people it's crazy to me, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. I know you're on a roll, but it's crazy to me where people place their threshold of belief. You know, what is too much for them, that they laugh at whatever's beyond that. And it seems like that moves depending on the situation.
Well, we're all on a weird topic that normal people think is ridiculous. And you would think that I meet somebody else who's into Bigfoot online, in real life, whatever. We would just be overjoyed to find like another weirdo. But no, we've all of a sudden got to argue over, well, I think it's this and I think it's this. And I know some woo people are equally we're a little aggressive nowadays because I feel like sometimes we're one of the torchbearers for this weird stuff. Because quite honestly, in my mind, it's kind of hard to argue with us. If you're just some dude who sits around a campfire telling Bigfoot stories and it's just a monkey and da-da-da-da-da, and I took these reports and I talked to these people, well, we got skin in the game, man. You know what I'm saying? Allow me to trot out our personal experiences to perhaps counter some third-hand information that you seem to be very proud of possessing. And like LW says, I've grown to dislike the term woo. Well, we use it nowadays just as if somebody has a word, don't let it bother you, adopt it, throw it back in their faces.
Ben J has a great little statement here. My friend shared this thought a long time ago. A man's opinion has nothing on a man's experience. The glory does go to the man in the arena.
Yes. So, and for better or worse, we're in the arena. We're out there. You know what? Here's the deal. We're past the point of having imposter syndrome where we just go, gosh, all these other people, because we've been around long enough now that I know as far as like just getting out there and pounding the pavement, hitting it over and over and over again and sheer effort, we're right up there with anybody else right now. And I'm not ashamed to say that. But so these guys were just attacking people over the concept of Mindspeak, and you all just don't understand how science works. This is why the community's not taken seriously. And I'm going, nah, you guys are why the community's not taken seriously. This is the definition of, and we talked about this the other night, Joe Rogan had a show called Joe Rogan Questions Everything, where he went out and looked at different weird topics. Bigfoot, he was really, really into until he went out and spent time with some Bigfoot researchers. And then he walked away just saying that Bigfoot's the stupidest, fakest thing out there. He wants it to be true, but after spending time with these people, it's just not. Because we don't need these like Indiana Jones type, experts on Bigfoot because none of us know anything on it. We don't know enough on it. We've got little like breadcrumbs like with stuff. But my problem is that whatever is going on out in the woods and whatever people are seeing and whatever people are experiencing with these Bigfoot encounters, it's complex. It's not just a big gorilla that comes and eats out of your trash cans and then just goes and hides when you walk out, like on your front porch with a flashlight to hear what was rattling around. It's more complex than that. It's got to be. It's more nuanced than that. There's other stuff going on. And to just make very blanket juvenile statements of you don't understand science, so this is impossible, mind speak, that's what hurts us. Okay. Because now all of a sudden there's no room for conversation. There's no room to try to explore new topics and new ideas. You're woo. This is a woo idea. Well, who cares? Sure it is. It's woo. Guess what? Science is pretty freaking woo when you get down to it. Okay. Everything from a common light bulb is insane when you really stop and think about it.
What was that phrase that what is considered science today was considered magic?
Yeah. And that's where we're at with this. And what's crazy to me, the thing that always gets me with Mindspeak, and trust me, and here's the deal. I had a very uneducated opinion on it a few years ago, but I had an uneducated opinion on it because I didn't really care about it one way or the other. Okay. But I also, since I didn't care about it, I didn't try to lecture people on it because I didn't really know enough about it. Things I don't care about, I don't really know a lot about. However, then Jesse started having experiences of going, I just had the weirdest thought or something was in my head. I believe her. Okay. If I believe anybody on earth, I believe Jesse. Okay. And then I have had an instance of just a very strange, intrusive, errant thought that came into my head one time. And it's when I was in the Grove and I was talking about how we were going to end up dying out there. And I had a thought just out of nowhere interrupt what I was thinking. And it went, oh, we're not going to kill you. We're having too much fun effing messing with you. Of course, it didn't say messing, dropped the F-bomb. And I just even went, that was the craziest thing ever. It stopped the thought that I was having and just brushed all of that aside. And then I went back to my regular thoughts. So after that, I became interested in it. And more importantly, I began to learn about stuff that could possibly explain it. And I've been talking about this a little bit through the past few weeks, talking about something called the Frey effect. Now, let's leave infrasound, which I have very strong feelings on the back burner for a few minutes. Let's not talk about that. Let's just focus on a couple of things that people report when they have Bigfoot encounters. That a very large portion of the Bigfoot community immediately hard stop, and now that encounter's gone because you experienced zapping or you experienced Mindspeak. Although zapping has gotten a little bit more Bigfoot mainstream. Of course, they tie it to infrasound. Again, impossible, or improbable, very highly improbable. But there's a thing called the Frey effect. So for something that Mindspeak, which is scientifically impossible, I was told by somebody whose last time they cracked a science book was probably in the 1960s or 70s in high school, but now is going to berate people to the point where they can't even discuss something. So there's a thing called the Frey effect. Okay. And this is, I challenge you all to just, when you get done with this, look it up. Don't take my word for it. Okay. And I'm going to paraphrase a lot of this stuff. But back when radar started to first get used in the military in World War II, mechanics and workmen who worked around airplanes that had radar transmitters on them would start to report hearing weird stuff sometimes that nobody around them heard. And it would be anything from a ping, just hear a random ping. Anybody hear that? No, I didn't hear anything. Then it would just keep happening. But then it would happen to me one day, then it would happen to Jesse one day. Everybody started reporting it at various times. Then you'd start hearing things like crackling, a metallic sound, bells ringing, in some instance, what sounded like garbled speech, very briefly. Well, they started looking into it and they realized that it's when these radar transmitters were in use that this was starting to happen. Okay. So flash forward to 1961, a guy by the name of Alan Frey started to look into this phenomenon. And he realized, and I wrote my numbers down here, so sometimes I speak off the cuff and I want to make sure I've got it, that when signals between 200 megahertz and 3 gigahertz were being introduced into an environment. People were hearing stuff that other people weren't hearing. And they were hearing stuff that wasn't showing up on audio recorders. There were sounds appearing in their head that no one else could hear. Scientifically proven, okay? And what they figured out is, so now all of a sudden, this is a big deal. So we're shooting electromagnetic waves and people are hearing stuff in their head. I mean, even if you're not familiar with this, you could probably sit down and come up with just like a whole array of uses for this. Some of them good, some of them not so good. But so Alan Frey starts looking into this. That's why it's called the Frey effect, is what it was originally called. Okay. Now it's called microwave auditory effect, or I usually call it MAP, microwave auditory phenomenon, but let's just call it the Frey effect for this. So what he realized is that some of these RF signals, these electromagnetic waves, you ever use a microwave before, Jesse?
I did today.
I did today. You put something in there, okay? Heat occurs in usually one of 3 ways. Convection, hot liquid or air heats something up like a convection oven. Conduction, heat is transferred from this to that, like a electric stove when you put it on the range on that. And radiation, okay? So what happens is microwaves hit and starts basically exciting the molecules of an item and it heats up, okay? So what they were figuring out was...
Does it cause the molecules to vibrate?
Yes, vibration. When, you know how when you boil a pot of water, it starts to vibrate and bubble? Mm-hmm. Okay. And you know how like when you start to rub a piece of your skin, that skin will heat up? Motion causes heat, heat causes motion. Okay. And so what they realized is that there's a couple of different things that will happen with this effect. And I know this sounds wildly complicated. Well, guess what? It is wildly complicated. And that's why I think that nobody in our community has spent the time to try to understand it. And they just look at people. And some of you people in this chat right now have had Mindspeak before. More of the people in this chat have been zapped, what you would consider it before. I've talked to some of you guys. And if you tried to tell that to someone who probably never gets 20 feet away from their campsite with their brand new Magellan outdoor shirt and their adventurer's hat on, they're going to tell you, they're going to scoff at you, tell you you're woo, or just flat out telling you that you're lying. And tell you you don't understand how science works. Well, after this, you are going to understand how science works. You're going to understand how a very small, not very well-known sliver of science works that shows you you don't even need anything that violates the laws of science to explain some of this stuff from happening. We just don't understand maybe how it's being applied, but we understand that it's certainly physically possible and it's certainly happening at that point. So anyway, what they realized is that when you're getting hit with these RF waves, certain frequencies would cause basically what's called thermoelastic expansion. Parts of your brain would begin to vibrate, grow, expand, everything like that. And it's in your auditory cortex where the little bones in your ear vibrate and those vibrations get sent in and that gets translated into sound in your brain, okay? It was exciting that auditory cortex and causing these sounds to just appear in their mind. No physical sound wave happened. Nobody spoke. Nothing happened to cause the sound, but it appeared in your head, okay? It just appeared in your head. That's all there is to it.
Could those vibrations be controlled to change what was appearing into your head?
Yeah, it could be. Well, then they also figured out that sometimes now sound waves are mechanical waves, okay? A disruption to a physical medium. My voice right now is a mechanical wave. A wave on the shore is a mechanical wave. Taking a jump rope and doing like that with it and watching it go like that is a mechanical wave. Electromagnetic waves are those same disruptions that don't need a medium. They just transmit through space, okay? So they also realized too that sometimes what would happen is you would get hit with an electromagnetic wave. There's a thing called radiation pressure, which is sometimes where a particular frequency of electromagnetic wave impacts a solid and will sometimes be absorbed by the solid and give a vibration, or will sometimes, you ever heard about people with fillings picking up radio stations back in the day? All right, similar principle. And that it was actually sometimes exciting the little bones in your ear. So you could hear it, but there was nothing, it was electromagnetically caused. It wasn't a sound wave. There was nothing audible. It was not a vocalization or a sound like you know it that was happening at that point. So multiple people have looked into this, okay? There's a guy named Dr. James Lynn back in, and I got to look that up, 1978, he wrote a book, Microwave Auditory Effects and Applications, where they talked about this, going, this is a real phenomenon. How can we use it? What uses are there for this, okay? Well, then it came out shortly after that book came out that in 1975, Walter Reed Army Institute, where some pretty shady stuff is rumored to have gone down in the past, that they were basically running with this because they saw the military application of being able to just beam words into someone's head that no one else around them could hear. Don't need radios at that point. You don't need any of that. You know, you don't need to have like radios, keep them powered, keep a code, keep it encrypted, everything like that. It's just going right into your head. They also looked at how could it be used to disrupt enemy forces during a war. You could literally spread propaganda to enemy forces by beaming it in their head, and there's nothing that the enemy commanders could do to stop it, except maybe tinfoil hats. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Is this something that can be directed to an individual?
Absolutely. Unlike infrasound, which is very hard to direct. And that's the thing that always gets me. You have people that are, I got zapped, you didn't. You got zapped, I didn't. Infrasound is very hard to direct like that. Electromagnetic waves and these frequencies are extremely directional. You know what I'm saying?
So if someone's standing next to another person,
I can hit one person out of a crowd of 100 with it if I want to. And they've done it because they think that what I'm talking about right now explains Havana syndrome, which we'll get to a little bit later.
Has something like this ever been used in crowd control measures?
We're going to get to that here in a little bit. There's a thing called Medusa that we'll talk about a little bit. So,
all right.
But anyway, Walter Reed, they determined, had figured out a way to using electromagnetic waves, using a more subtle and sophisticated method that had its genesis in the old radar transmitters of World War II. They got to the point where they could transmit 10 words, 10 understandable words into your head.
Until what happened?
Well, supposedly the research stopped because you ever cook a hot dog too long in a microwave?
I can't say that I have, but I can assume what would happen if you did. It would overheat and possibly explode.
I wrote this quote down verbatim. We stopped because the power levels required for transmitting sound would cause brain damage due to thermal effects.
Melting their brains.
Well, no.
Overheating their brains.
Overheating the brains. You'd have massive heat up in your brain. So now, did they stop? Sure. I'm sure they stop all of this stuff. I'm sure they stop every single government program, just like they claimed that the government wasn't looking into UFOs anymore. And we know that's a lie now. They've been looking into UFOs the entire time. They never stopped. They never stop any of this stuff. It just changes names and it gets a little bit more underground than it was before. So they claim to stop, but they got 10 words beamed into someone's head safely. Now the heat was getting high, but then they stopped because they didn't want to go any further and and you just don't stop research like that. And we know they didn't stop research like that.
And this was something that was at the time a completely new technology that they had developed, not necessarily something that if you are something that maybe evolved differently to develop this ability to do this, that maybe you could get beyond 10 words.
That was 50 years ago. They could do 10 words with 50-year-old technology. They could do 10 words into your head. They could beam 10 words into your head. They could pick you out of a group of people, orient the device at you, tell Jesse, hey, Jesse, tonight I want you to make macaroni, cheese. I'd have to leave the and out. Okay.
I get it though.
You could literally do that. 50 years ago, they could do 10 words. Do you think they stopped?
No.
No, they wouldn't stop. Now, they also worked on a thing.
If you're familiar with the MK Ultra program, you would know that the government does not care about casualties when they're doing their experiments.
Well, and now keep in mind, the more power you put into these electromagnetic waves, the louder it would be in your head. So they had a thing called Medusa that they were experimenting with that supposedly went away because it was too dangerous. I have to write this down because I never remember the first word because it's a really weird, you can tell they started with the acronym and then they tried to find words to fit it.
We've all been there.
We've all been there. We've done it. It's mob excess deterrent using silent audio. And they would basically go, we're going to shoot this at rioting crowds. They are going to have like overwhelming cacophonous sound in their heads. It's going to break it up. And what they would do technically is they would beam at them, disperse. This is an unlawful gathering. The same stuff you hear them shout on at rioters over like bullhorns nowadays, but they would use it doing Medusa. But they would do it at such levels that it would be extremely painful, and that would stop the riot, the gathering, the protest, whatever they were trying to stop at this point. Now, I have another quote that I wrote down verbatim here. They had to stop because the heat would kill you before you were bothered by the sound. So when they ramped up the power levels on this so high in order to make such a loud sound in your head, well, the heat would kill you. And, you know, the military certainly doesn't want weapons that can kill large groups of people with no collateral damage at all. So I'm sure they just stopped all of that. Okay. So
cheaper than bullets, though.
It's cheaper than bullets. So what happened is 50 years ago, we had the technology and the know-how to beam 10 words into a person's head. And there's lots of cool little like little like names for it. There's a thing called voice to skull, where basically they can hit a vibration in your skull, excite this, and you're hearing a voice inside your skull at that point without use of like the ears at all. But so I do that and I go, so basically what you have is you have mechanically induced telepathy at that point. So could something biological do it without tools? I don't see how that's possible. Are people experiencing mind speak in the woods? Yes, they are. Les Stroud experienced it. He did a 180 on it when it happened to him. I did a 180 on it when I experienced it myself. Multiple of you people have experienced it. So it's real. And we know that there's at least one way of doing it now. We know that there is one way of doing it. We know that there is at least one way. And that's not even getting into like other stuff, like the telepathy tapes are really.
Yes. People in the chat mentioned that.
Okay. Nonverbal autistic people seem to have the ability to communicate with each other and their caregivers. And they can't make that go away right now. They're really trying hard to debunk it. But I'm watching it kind of unfold in real time. They're having a hard time dismissing that right now. But let's not even talk about that. But right now there is a way for normal people to have thoughts beamed into their head. That's not just the purview of schizophrenics anymore. You know what I'm saying? You know,
we can't have anything.
I know. It's not just people being gang stalked, having like stuff.
Again, I can't have anything.
But I
had to break it up with a little laugh there.
We keep going. There's something weird with electromagnetism going on in the woods here. There's something weird with electromagnetism. Leaving Mindspeak to the side, we go into these areas where there are reports of Bigfoot activity. We find tracks, we see big figures on thermal, and we have weird equipment problems, which again, not even hypothetically, could all be attributed to like strange and very strong electromagnetic fields.
Especially since some of the equipment problems we are experiencing seems like it's targeted towards certain pieces of equipment that are functioning perfectly normal in one area. And we experience this in URs. We go into another area and just this one piece is affected, and then another piece is
It's usually the
affected.
piece we need too.
Usually the piece we need.
How many
at that
times have
moment.
we had cameras like get really, really hot and then the batteries are dead?
Yeah.
Because electromagnetic fields they don't necessarily drain the battery, but it makes the battery discharge all of its power very, very quickly. So now you've got a dead battery and a really hot camera, which sometimes damages the camera.
Or the strange instances where we're trying to use a piece of equipment in an area, and it is absolutely imperative that we use this piece of equipment to gather data. It does not function whatsoever. And then a few minutes or say an hour later, we're in another area, or the moment has passed where we needed to use that, and it functions absolutely fine.
Absolutely. And it is a lot of the more tech-driven researchers and investigators experience this. Yes, if you were sitting around a campfire in a KOA campground a few miles from where Bigfoot has been reported, and people are just sitting around a campfire all night long, telling stories and occasionally going, "Shh, did you hear that? I think the boogers are near." You know, you may not realize that there are things going on around you that your eyes can't detect, that there's things going on in the electromagnetic spectrum around you, unless it's personally directed at you. And you have that zapping effect, or you have that mind speak. A lot of people that report having mind speak, not always, but it seems like sometimes the more intense and longer it happens, they have physical effects afterwards. Yeah. Okay. And if you start looking at the physical effects that people sometimes have after mind speak, and you look at the physical effects that people report with zapping, there's a lot of crossover between the two of them. The zapping is obviously more severe. You know what I'm saying? It's much more severe. And then there's a reason for it. And I always say, if you start looking at what we know infrasound at very high levels for long periods of time does, it can kill the tiny little hairs in your ears, you know, can lead to some hearing damage over long-term exposure at very high levels. I'm talking months and years, not standing there in the middle of the woods and then within 5 seconds it's on you. Some irritability, some disruption of sleep patterns. When people get zapped, what do they report? I was confused. I felt nauseated. So I went through and I gathered up some physical effects that same range. And I said earlier, the Frey effect happened within 200 megahertz and 3 gigahertz. Okay. Physical effects that are caused by exposure in that same frequency range. Weird things happen to your body when you're hit. Now, sometimes the frequency and the power, the much stronger electromagnetic field, maybe a slightly different, but it's all within that same range that Frey figured out is causing strange noises to happen in your head. Now, here's the thing too, is that certain parts of your body are very susceptible to those frequencies. Fluid-rich tissues, okay? Your inner ear, your eyeballs, your brain, obviously, you know what I'm saying? They all get affected by really strong electromagnetic waves in that frequency range. And as soon as I started reading about the eye thing, what do we think about? John Keel, and how a lot of times people that experienced high strangeness in cases he investigated
often experience eye problems.
Eye problems at that point.
As a result.
So, and the other thing that I found was very interesting is that people have reported who've been exposed to electromagnetic fields in that frequency range. Basically what happens is the microwaves that you're exposed to, they penetrate the soft tissue, okay? And they get into your head and they mess with the electrical properties of your neurons, where basically your neurons are firing off in your brain. Well, microwaves in that frequency range can mess with you. It can cause mental fog, memory loss, sometimes very short term I don't remember the last 10 minutes. What just happened? How many times do you hear that happen in cases of high strangeness? Missing time basically is what that would be. You just shut off, and then you come to when the electromagnetic field stops, and you don't know what's happened the last 10 minutes, last 15 minutes, last hour. Okay. It literally has the ability to shut your brain down. Confusion, you basically get frozen in some cases. You have the inability to move or speak, but you're still conscious.
Basically going catatonic.
And we've talked about this in the past. We haven't talked about it for a while. All of this sounds like the Oz effect.
Yes.
Where you are experiencing something, you're seeing something with your eyes. And the most famous case is the dino beaver, the dinosaur beaver thing that they saw at Skinwalker Ranch. They had night vision cameras, they had thermal cameras, everybody was just in a daze watching it, and nobody tried to film it at all until it walked away and disappeared.
And then it's like they came to and said, well, why didn't we capture this? Why didn't we film this? I don't know why I didn't move. I didn't do anything. I was just left incapacitated.
People will often see Bigfoot and they have a phone or a camera available. Why didn't you take a photo? I just couldn't. I don't know why I didn't.
And could you attribute that to shock?
Some
to
of
a
it,
degree?
But some people deal well with shock. Okay. But yet we don't have those people who deal well with shock getting us any like really good Bigfoot footage. Okay. It sounds as if there is a disruption of the electrical properties of your neurons, just like what they describe here at this point. Certain frequencies can mess with your vagus nerve, your hypothalamus, your brain stem, and it will often, you get stuck in the fight or flight loop. You know you need to do something, you just can't do it. You're literally frozen into place. All of these are often accompanied with nausea. Once it is over, you get extremely nauseated, which you hear in the zapping effect constantly, time and time again, you know. Now, one of the things they discovered when they were looking into this is that single instances, bam, just a little shot of these microwaves would cause a singular sound in your head. Depending upon its strength, it could be a ping, it could be a knock, or it could be a metallic crashing sound.
Where have we heard metallic crashing sound?
We hear it all the damn time now. Now, here's the deal. The very powerful ones, the very powerful electromagnetic waves would often affect more than one person. Instead of it being like a linear array, it's like a bomb going off in every direction. And I think back to the Tom Mezek case. The hiker who was mentioned, well, he was a hunter that was mentioned in the 411, missing 411, who was out with his family and friends, just disappeared, and everybody there heard a metallic sound. People often associate their experience with what Martin Grove's experience, that metallic sound. But now,
Blueberry says Zippergate.
Yeah, so, well, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't include that, but that's actually included in the literature. People hear zipper type stuff. A zipping sound is how it's described, but they don't really go into due depth that it was mentioned as a zipping sound, but it's a little too close to home right now, so I didn't really want to bring it up. Now, they discovered too that you could start to fine tune it, that if you would start doing pulsating microwaves instead of just hitting somebody with it, you would start pulsing it. Did almost like a Morse code type thing. You could have very specific effects on people. It would start to mess with your vestibular system. Okay. You would get vertigo, disorientation. You would lose consciousness. You'd fall down. You wouldn't be able to get up. You'd be extremely confused and not knowing what's going on. All of this ties in with the zapping. So if we've got something out here that, and it doesn't even need to be Bigfoot. Maybe Bigfoot can't do this stuff any more than we can. But maybe there's something else out there that can do this. And this is where Bigfoot congregates because it knows it helps add to its cover and camouflage.
Oh.
Okay.
So, okay.
There's a secondary phenomenon going on. We don't know what it is. And maybe it doesn't appear to be natural, but maybe they congregate in these areas where stuff like that happens. as a way of staying hidden. It
so they
helps them.
use something in their environment, even if it's something completely unknown to us. Like they use the sound of cars or planes as cover for their vocalizations. They're using this phenomena
Yes.
as a cover for their existence.
So one of the other things that stood out to me doing research on this, and when I was brushing up for this episode, I'd never seen this before. But when we were in the Uwaris, and if MK is in the chat still, he can back us up on this. We had an instance when we were near some old caves and mines that we were exploring at night that we heard some vocalizations, and at the same time, everything went quiet. Everything went quiet. We were in like a cone of silence.
It was terrifying.
It's terrifying. Now, there's two things that I kind of just stumbled across looking into this stuff. Is that sometimes these electromagnetic waves, I mentioned earlier that sometimes they can bounce off of solid objects and basically cause vibrations at that point. They can vibrate and mess with your inner ear. Okay, the little hammer and anvil in your ear that transmits, that picks up on sound waves in the air, that it can mess with that, and it can have the effect of you lose the sensation of background and ambient environmental sounds. Okay, that it just takes that away. You still hear the main things, like if somebody blew a horn or a vocalization that was loud or somebody's voices. But the frogs and the insects and the birds and, maybe if there's a creek babbling nearby would all just basically get washed away. Your ear wouldn't process it. Okay. The other thing that I found extremely interesting was that, some animals, they call it electrosensitivity and magnetoreceptiveness. You know how some birds know to fly north and south because they're tuned into the electric field. I'm sorry, the magnetic field of the earth.
Yeah.
They know which way north is, they know which way south is. You have other animals that are very, very sensitive to different types of electricity. And there have been actually studies shown where ticks especially will sometimes be attracted or repelled because of electromagnetic fields. Okay.
That explains why we get attacked.
Yeah, exactly. So, but what happens is
by the questing
because of those qualities, scientists have found out that sometimes when you introduce EMF, RF, microwaves into a particular natural setting, frogs, birds, insects, they go quiet, and they will sometimes quietly flee the area. So everybody always goes, people are like, I was in the woods, and then all of a sudden the insects stopped and the birds stopped, the frogs stopped, and people will go, a predator was nearby. And I'm always like, crickets don't really care if there's a bobcat in the area. Okay. Crickets are just going to keep doing what crickets do.
They're not the prime target of the
bobcat. They're not. It's not their prey. They're not the prey of a mountain lion. Okay. They don't stop because a coyote's going by. That whole, well, there's a predator near. Prey animals will maybe go quiet and everything like that. But yeah, that ain't the case. And if you've ever been around squirrels in the trees, they chatter at you like nobody's business. They don't go quiet for stuff like that. Okay. But especially the insects don't go quiet because there's a predator in the area. But they will go quiet if all of a sudden there's a sudden and strong electromagnetic field in the area. So I just did that and I go, yet another thing that gets attributed to Bigfoot.
I never knew that. Like I never knew that was a factor in that.
Yeah.
Because you always hear that everything in the forest goes quiet when there's a predator in the area. That's another one of those things that's just repeated.
Just you hear. Patron saint of Hellbent Holler, Sheila Ebeling. I think she was like one of the first couple
I believe
members
so.
that we had.
Yes,
and she's been a holler baller, man. She's like in it to win it. I can mind speak with animals. I used to speak with my animals all the time. And I'm not even getting into that. There are people that can look at your cat or your dog and go, I know what it's thinking. I know what it's feeling.
Usually it's food though.
Yeah, usually it is food. But I'm not even touching upon that. I'm not touching upon any of that intangible stuff. And Hawk goes perfectly here. Sending videos through a phone line is woo. All of this technology is woo. talking to each other through cell phones is woo. Okay. As I was like doing some, just like brushing up on some of this stuff for this episode, I'm using my cell phone. I'm using a little small, something that literally holds in the palm of my hand. And
to connect to an invisible network and
that
going
has
across the air.
Sum of human knowledge at my fingertips. What the hell, man? That's as woo and as crazy as you get, and it happens. And I can't explain to you the mechanics behind this. I can explain to you the basic idea of how it happens. Could I replicate it myself? Absolutely not. I couldn't build a cell phone and the network that you need to support it and the battery that you need to power it and the electricity you need to charge the battery and all that. No, but it still happens. Just because I don't know how all of those parts come together, they still all came together, and here's like proof. I always forget which side.
And you're not going to deny that they exist.
I'm not
you
a
don't
phone
know
denier.
how they work.
I'm not a phone denier.
Phone denier. Wi-Fi denier.
So when you guys are hearing me talk about like the Frey effect and how, and here's the other thing too, is that, so Frey, I found this interesting. The guy who originally studied this, 1960s, he found out that the Russians were extremely interested in this.
I'm sure they were.
And they invited him to come over and lecture on something. So he went and found out that the Russians were spending a lot of time on psychotronic research. You know, this weird mixture of psychic and electronics. And they think that a lot of the principles that Frey kind of basically solidified and talked about have been used for Havana syndrome. Now, here's the thing. Back in the day when Havana syndrome, when everybody wants to babble at me about infrasound and what it can and can't do, because you heard somebody else talk about it, about what it can and can't do, who, like on Facebook or something. The government looked into whether or not infrasound could be a possible culprit of the Havana syndrome that so many people have reported.
Yes.
And the Havana syndrome that American diplomats and servicemen and women are experiencing all over the world, this weird kind of like invisible weapon that seems to be used against them. They looked in to see if it could be infrasonic. And then they went, infrasound can't do this. We can't do this with infrasound.
Yeah.
The United States government can't do it. Okay. So I always go, if something's out there doing this stuff with infrasound, it's something that's using a known phenomenon in a way that we don't understand, that the United States government can't do. The United States government ain't got no problem beaming 10 words into your head using electromagnetic
And it's using
field.
it at such an expert level.
So they quickly got away from that, and they went, we think that Havana syndrome is an electromagnetic, basically a microwave weapon. And some people that have experienced Havana syndrome have reported hearing a rapid clicking and something that almost sounds like murmuring in their head that they can't make the words out to. So they're pretty sure that it is a microwave weapon of some type.
Uh-huh.
Not infrasound based, a microwave weapon of some type. So a couple other things in here at Marcus Aurelius.
I have a ton of chats marked. I don't know if we're going to be able to.
All right, but we'll go through them.
We will get where we can get to.
But but again, so if anybody ever wants to leap at you, if you have experienced Mindspeak, and I'm not even saying Frey effect is what it is. However, when you start to look at all of this and the physical effects, what it's capable of doing, we know that electromagnetic fields can do this. We just don't know who or what and how are using these. It checks a lot of boxes. Matter of fact, for me, it checks all the boxes except for who's doing it, how are they doing it, why are they doing it? Just like the UAP phenomenon. People are experiencing this stuff. We don't know who or how or why, but it's happening. And once the UAP community adopted that and stopped trying to talk about alien rockets and everything like that, and just laid all their cards on the table and went, this is happening. We don't know who, we don't know how, we don't know why. All of a sudden, then people started to, the scientific creativity started coming up. Well, you know, maybe that's not so impossible after all, you know? So, and I'm going to be honest with you. I think that there's something else going on. And I don't think that Bigfoot is staring at you, although I did share a nice little image in our Discord of a possible, it was like far-fetched.
Good night, Lady Wolf.
Good night, Lady Wolf. But it's happening. We just don't know who, why, or how. But my best guess right now is there's something going on alongside the Bigfoot phenomenon, or Bigfoot is so absolutely strange. Because here's the deal. No other creature on earth can do anything. Electric eels can generate up, you know what I'm saying? Electrical charges. That's a far cry from what's going on. This is very sophisticated.
Yeah.
And again, there might be something else completely out there that has nothing to do with any of this. And I just wasted all my time writing this down. But here's the deal. When somebody starts to preach at you that mind speak is scientifically impossible, you need to stop and you need to go. No, it's very scientifically possible. Very scientifically possible.
And it was done 50 years ago.
Done 50 years ago, it was scientifically possible. 50 years ago, that American scientists could point a device at you and 10 fully formed, understandable words could be beamed into your head.
And the person next to you would not hear them.
Would not hear them. So there you go.
Old Henry, thank you for being a member for 11 months.
Old Henry.
Every minute of it. I'm going to go through some of these chats right now, and we're going to hit a few of those. Hawk, thank you for the super chat. I do know one thing. If you are afraid, they will mess with you. I guess if you open yourself up to it and you give them that fear that they're going to kind of target you in a way, that seems like it's something that happens with the Dogman phenomenon specifically. Roberta Newman, 1999. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Roberta.
Made it to the live today. I know these are from a while back.
This one's a bit dry tonight.
Joe was on a roll.
Yeah.
Joe was on a roll. He was hitting it hard. I'm sitting here just absorbing, and I hope you guys did too. But there is a purpose to this. There's a huge purpose to this. This is all stuff that we didn't know. Joe knew some of this, but Joe has done a deep dive on this subject. There are so many things that we don't know, and you can't make those blanket statements that this is a fact. This is a fact when you have no training or no knowledge of this subject. And you can't let people who are like that put you down and tell you what you're experiencing is not real. All right, I'm rolling through the chat right now. And
Hawk goes, my ex would get nosebleeds from the telepathy.
Yeah, I saw that. We were talking about the men in the adventure hats. Bonnie Blue McGee says, but Alex has an Indiana Jones hat and we love him. And let's see, we're going to go on here.
We do love Alex, you know what I'm saying? So, but if you see Alex's adventure hat, it's sweaty, banged up.
He goes on adventures in it. Lisa McClendon, I think Rogan is one of those guys that says, I have been in the woods my entire life and have never seen anything strange.
He wants the Bigfoot phenomenon to be real because he loves the idea of it, but he got so poisoned by the stereotypical Bigfoot hunters.
And that's something that you have to get over. I think that, we all go through periods. If you're involved in this field, you go through periods where you just get completely just disenchanted with the whole thing. You get beaten down and you just get mentally broken by the whole thing because there's so many people involved in it that just wear you down. I mean, if you go through a comment section on any YouTube channel, you will see that there's just negativity, there's naysaying, there's picking, there's nitpicking at everything. And you just can't let that take you down. And it's understandable that you get exhausted from that, but you got to kind of barrel through it and get through it because that's the only way we're going to get anywhere with this. And the whole thing, I've been in the woods my whole life and I've never seen anything strange. A really good analogy for that is you have a whole map of the woods. You have this whole table of the woods here. That is the forest, and you lay salt out on it and you take a needle and drag it through. And that's the trail in this whole vast wilderness. So what these people are saying is they've been on this trail. You can be on this trail 100 times, but you have no idea what else is out there in this wide ranging area beyond that trail that you've been on 100 times.
Couple quick things here. Barax had said dogs can detect electronics. It's called electronic storage detection training. They can sniff and you can double check me on this. They sniff the chemical compounds on certain parts of electronic stuff. They're not feeling the electromagnetism. I don't believe dogs, unless something has changed with that.
I will take a look at that. ES.
But I believe that's a scent-based thing that And Bonnie Blue, some of the witnesses that have heard Bigfoot have said they could feel the vibration deep in their chests. That would definitely rattle your systems. That is actually, depending upon the frequency, you will feel a rattle. Not a thumping, but like a rattling in your body cavity from it. That's mentioned when you like look into this. And if any of you guys look into this to kind of just verify what I've been telling you, you'll come across that certain frequencies will actually just vibrate your cavity.
Dogs that are trained in electronic storage detection do smell the chemical compounds that are used in the production of the components of that. Sarge has one knife check, please. Let's get one of those in there.
We have Essie's tonight.
Tonight is Essie night. This is mine. I have an Essie 3. This was my OG knife that I would carry all the time. Jesse with 2 Essies, generally. I would have one on my belt and I'd have one on my chest rig. But that was the knife I'd carry in the woods all the time. And I've kind of diversified my carry in the woods. But this was my classic carry. Got an Armitage carry sheath.
Now you got the Papa Bear knife that you carry.
Yeah, so. I do, yeah.
I got an Essie 6. That is like their standard bushcraft. And it's just a plain bushcraft design. You can tell. Nothing fancy about it. This is the discontinued model that has a sharpened back edge. A lot of people were using this for hog hunting, and they discontinued that for some reason. I don't know why, but I wanted the double-edged one because it's got some defensive.
I love those scales.
Yeah. So,
Surviving the Strange mentioned this earlier. Zap stuff seems to sound like the effects of a mild TBI, and when you have this energy, I guess you would say, and I'm going to consult you on this. Because you are our expert on this today.
Not an expert. But yeah. So.
I say that jokingly. But it does do damage. There's this sort of energy, this projection.
Has short and long-term health effects, which we know people who had short and long-term health effects from a zapping-like experience. They had the short-term effects of the nausea and the confusion and everything like that. But then they appear to have long-term serious health effects that can be traced back to that encounter. So EDP had asked, Joe, when you had your experience, did you hear it as being spoken like we're having too much fun with you? Or was it you thinking they're, oh, no. I heard in my head. I was talking about how dangerous the area is and that we're going to end up, I was just like, we're going to end up dying out here. Super frustrated, had a frustrating night. And I'm just going, we're going to end up like dying out here one night. We've got to be just, very, and then just, it stopped me in mid thought. And it said, I can almost get the inflection perfect down to it. It was just like, oh, we're not going to kill you. We're having too much fun effing with you. And I literally just stopped and just went, I just had the craziest. And it's like, my thoughts stopped. And and here's the deal. The human mind works in weird ways. Maybe I thought that. I can't prove that one way or the other. I don't usually have random intrusive thoughts like that just stop me in my train of thought. And then I go right back to my train of thought. It was weird. It's not something that has happened, but weird things happen for no reason sometimes. I can't swear it was something, but it's something that's always stood out to me, and it's never really happened to that degree ever since then. And the fact that it was talking to me, we are having too much fun effing with you, So yeah, it was very, very strange.
I had that incident in Blackthorn where you and I are going along that creek bed, headed towards the lakeshore, and we were following a trail of bottles up in trees. And we're going down through there, and all of a sudden, I just turn to you and say, "I just had something weird happen." Yeah. I was very weirded out by the whole thing, but a question. I heard a voice in my head say, "What was it? Come
here often?
Come here much.
Come here much. Yeah.
Come here much. It wasn't come here often. That's what it closed.
Come here much.
Yeah. Come here much. And I heard it. I heard a voice say that in my head. It was not my voice, and it wasn't my internal voice. It was a voice of another.
Well, and we really didn't touch upon the Dogman phenomenon too much tonight, but Dogman encounters, people that have run-ins with these entities will often go, but for that, it's more instead of like a fully formed, like with Les Stroud, with what he experienced with Bigfoot. And if I'm probably getting this wrong, but I'm sure somebody can correct me. He heard something to the effect of like, if you stay here tonight, we'll show ourselves to you. It was he
had a whole statement,
fully thought out statement, fully formed statement. People that have these things with dogmen, it's different. sometimes it's just a feeling that like it's telling you, I can take you anytime I want to, and there's nothing you can do to stop me.
Yeah.
You're not hearing that, but that's you're getting like an emotion almost that's being broadcast into you with a bit more subtext. But you know, people that are like will have a dogman encounter where it's running beside their car and it looks at them and they're like going, it's like it's telling me I can rip this door off and take you out of this car and you can't stop me. So with dogman, it's always much more negative, and maybe it's the fear that's being generated gets in the way of the message. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, but and for people that just go, well, you just saw a coyote. Well, coyotes don't really put thoughts into your heads. Bear don't put thoughts into your heads. Deer don't put thoughts into your heads. Nobody really has even a frightening bear encounter and go, and it's weird because in the middle of all this, I had a thought that the bear was going, I'm going to eat you, you dumb son of a, nobody really has that.
No, nobody ever reports hearing a bear's voice in their head.
All right, see what else we got here. You got anything else started that you want to bring up?
Nope. I have a bunch of stuff on there, but I think we've gone through a lot of the things.
So it's a lot of crap. Just kind of going through here.
Yeah, we're kind of going through here.
It's a lot to throw on you.
That is a lot. This was a heavy hitter.
But people kept asking because I kept referencing it, and I just would allude to it because it is a heavy thing.
Yeah.
So if you take anything away from this, just know it is scientifically possible. It's not outside the realm of possibility. And if one way is not outside the realm of possibility, there's probably other ways that thoughts can end up in your head. And that's before we get to a very strongly developed empathy like Sheila talked about, or the telepathy tape portion of it, where it's nonverbal, communication taking place with nonverbal individuals and verbal individuals at that point. So,
and this is technology that was in use 50 years ago.
Yes. So
that's what's shocking too, is this is so long ago that this was being used. And still not a lot of people know it even exists.
Not a lot of people know it exists, but that's what gets me, is that you have such a strongly held opinion on something to the point where you're going to berate other people to silence them. But yet you don't spend a half hour to kind of like look in to see what's possible and what's impossible.
MK Ultra says high density show.
It is a high density show. So,
but hopefully it gives you something to think about, something to look into, and realize that even if somebody claims they know everything, they can't make these pronouncements that they know everything, that they're experts on a subject. A lot of people don't even know about something that happened 50 years ago.
So Jeff Rohn said, Dogman taunted me when I had my encounter.
That seems to be the MO for Dogman.
Yeah.
Primarily. It's feeding of fear. How long are we going to go tonight?
We're getting ready to wrap it up right now.
Wrap it up. I know everybody needs to rest the brain. You've been zapped so much with all this information.
So listen, now you just have a baseline. So in the future, when I mention it, you just go, oh yeah, that's all that weird stuff you babbled about that night. Okay. It is a dense show. Some of you care, some of you don't care, but just take this, this is what you take away. A lot of you guys are interested. A lot of you guys have very open minds like we do. A lot of people have the same thought process we do. Something's going on. We don't know what it is. Okay. But the world is we know, humanity knows that the world's a lot weirder than what most people think. Science knows that. Okay. So it's not woo. Some of this stuff isn't woo. Some of this stuff is very easily scientifically explainable. We just don't know who or how or why. So let's stop getting so tied up on what's possible and what's impossible. And let's start trying to figure out who's behind this thing that may or may not be impossible. Why are they doing it? How are they doing it? So anyway, what else you got, Jess?
I think that's about it. I want everybody to take a moment and tell Joe what a good job he did tonight.
Joe did a great job.
Joe knocked it out of the park. on this. I know that you do make reference to this a good bit. People ask about it a lot. People have asked for an episode on the Frey effect, and this kind of gives you all something to think about and something to look into.
All right.
I think we're gonna wrap it up there. You got anything else?
I got nothing else. I'm done. I'm gonna go to bed.
You did great.
Yeah. So
I want to thank you guys for watching Hellbent live.
Next week we're back to the topical stuff.
Another episode for the books, and you guys can make reference to this. We will probably make reference and link to this episode many times in the future, because I know this is going to be a subject that comes up in the future. Duke Tucker, my boy, love the channel. Take care. Member for 14 months. Thank you, Duke,
so much. Hawk had said, I would love to see you debate Stephen S. and his minions. You can't, because there are people that are just so, that's like coming back from like a voyage and like, you know, the 1400s and trying to tell people that, hey, you know, there's a whole nother no, there's not. No, there's not. No, there's not.
You're foolish if you think there's another continent.
Some people you just can't converse with because they know more than you do. But here's the deal: don't even waste your time.
Yeah.
But don't allow them to silence you. None of you guys shouldn't be silencing anything. Even if you and I disagree, you might be right. Hell, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Everybody should be able to come to the table and talk, as long as you're just not flat out making stuff up.
Yeah.
But if you've had a legit experience that just doesn't seem like it makes sense, somebody else's derision and scorn doesn't invalidate your experience.
Absolutely. Pork Chop Express, the Juggernaut brought the thunder again. Awesome. I love
Juggernaut.
That's dope. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. You guys absolutely rock. Thank you to all of our members who have been with us forever and a day. You guys are why we can keep this up. You guys support the project. We are a member-supported and viewer-supported project. We are not in the back pocket of big Chinese
Bigfoot interests. So
Bigfoot interests or doodads. So we do appreciate you guys for being a part of this and being a part of this project. You guys absolutely rock.
Our buddy Cryptid response goes, I wonder how Martin Groves is doing. Martin Groves has been fighting some health problems, and he's doing okay. He is back home from the hospital. He's recovering. I was just checking to make sure that his wife had messaged me recently. He doesn't feel well at all.
Yeah.
But hopefully this last day in the hospital is going to kind of get him on a road to recovery. So I know he's not really active on social media much right now, but everybody send him some good vibes. Send him some really good mental energy. Pray, do what you want to do. But Martin's a hard man. He's got this licked. So
he's been through a lot worse.
Yeah. So
Karen Faust, thank you for a very good show tonight. And Walter Ballard, Jesse did great as the trophy wife.
Yes, the trophy wife. So
thank you.
Anyway, guys,
I have to have some function. All right.
Gypsy Pop is arriving late from Japan. We're going to get off. You're going to have to watch that from the beginning there. But
settle in and bring a notepad.
Yeah, bring a notepad. And again, next week, I'm probably going to go live for members again. I probably should have saved this for then, but somebody asked during the last Monday night show when I mentioned it, or within the past two,
and it set Joe on a course
that we should do a better job of explaining it. So it's been explained.
Yeah.
So there we go, guys. We thank you all so much.
Pray for our good friend Martin Groves. Send good energy his way, good healing energy. And I hope you guys have a great, safe week. We will catch you soon. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other, and block your brain from the heat waves.